There and back again. A Goggins Tale. Part 9. The Golden Hall. The king sat back in his throne, his gaze steady and clear once again. For a long moment, he took in the fellowship standing before him, his eyes lingering on Goggins, who stood confidently with his arms crossed. "I owe you a debt, Lord Goggins," he said, bowing his head slightly. "You have freed me from a darkness that bound me. I am free again to serve my people. I thank you for your courage. Rohan will not forget this." Goggins nodded. "Ain't nothing, sir. Just doing my job. You had some hangover over man." Aragorn stepped forward, his face etched with concern as he addressed the king. "My lord, I wish our relief could last longer, but we face an urgent threat from the west. Saruman is not content with simply weakening you. He is sending an army, tens of thousands strong, to destroy Rohan and its people. It's an assault we cannot withstand here in Edoras. We must seek the defenses of Helm's Deep." Théoden's expression shifted, the weight of his renewed kingship returning heavily on his shoulders. "So, it has come to this." He nodded grimly, his gaze drifting to the open doors of Meadowseld, where the sun was beginning to set over the plains of Rohan. "Then, we shall ride to Helm's Deep at dawn. My people, my men, they will be ready." "Not just your people, my lord," interjected Boromir, stepping forward and placing a hand over his heart. "The men of Gondor stand with Rohan, and I will ride with you when the time comes." Théoden's eyes brightened with hope as he looked upon Boromir. "Gondor's strength is most welcome. You honor us, son of Gondor." "King Théoden," Aragorn continued, "Gandalf too has sent word that he will meet us at Helm's Deep. I bring news also of a battalion of elves, dwarves, and men riding to aid us from Rivendell. Together, we will hold Helm's Deep against Saruman's forces." At the mention of Gandalf's name, Théoden's face grew hopeful, yet wary. "Gandalf," he muttered. "The wizard is ever a beacon in the dark. If he brings more warriors to our side, then perhaps we stand a chance." He turned to Goggins, nodding thoughtfully. "And what of you, Lord Goggins? Will you lend your strength to Rohan once more?" Goggins glanced around at the fellowship and shrugged, feigning a casual indifference. "Fuck, yeah, I got some special toys ready for this one. Plus, I got some unfinished business with Isengard." He gave a grin that made more than one guard take a nervous step back. The king smiled. "Very well, Lord Goggins. Negros Moors, I name you the Black Death to your enemies, and forever a friend to the Mark." Aragorn clapped Goggins on the shoulder. "It is well deserved, my lord. We are all together in this. Rohan shall not stand alone." The king rose from his throne, his eyes alive with the desire for battle. "Then it is settled. We leave for Helm's Deep before the dawn. Tonight, we rest, for tomorrow we ride against the storm." The king's voice rang through the hall and was met with a loud cheer by all present. As the hall gradually emptied, leaving only the low murmur of guards stationed at the doors, Aragorn stepped closer to the throne and lowered his voice. "My lord, there are matters that must be discussed in private." "Very well," replied the king, his expression darkening. "Follow me." With a slight motion to a nearby guard, Théoden led Aragorn and Goggins through a narrow passageway into a small, dimly lit chamber that served as a private council room. The air here was still and heavy, untouched by the vigor of the day. Théoden gestured for them to sit, but Goggins and Aragorn remained standing. "My lord," Aragorn began gently, Gríma's influence went far beyond mere words of deception. "He defiled the sanctity of your mind, your body, and your throne." Théoden's brow furrowed, and he braced himself against the table as Aragorn continued. "We have discovered the enemy's new weapon, the abomination. And in Rohan, our worst fears are now realized." Aragorn took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Think you that your frail state was due only to old age? Nay, Théoden King, it is not so. Wormtongue has treated you as man would his woman in your private chamber, beyond the protection of those who serve you faithfully and would have lain down life to protect their king from defilement." Aragorn paused, gauging the reaction to his news. The king's hand shook as he placed it upon his brow. "Go on." "As men who claim the booty of war," continued Aragorn. "Yeah, he got that booty all right," exploded Goggins, unable to restrain himself. "That motherfucker bent you over, like Diddy." Aragorn cut him off. Clearly, his approach would be more suitable to delivering such sensitive news. "No man, never mind, if he be king, should have to endure that which you have endured, Théoden king. It is a wonder you are able again to stand." The king's face paled. He sank heavily into a chair, his hands clutching his head as Aragorn described how Grima had desecrated his body. "I trusted him," Théoden murmured, his voice hollow. "Trusted him as a servant and friend. How could he do this to his king, to the kingdom he swore to serve?" "There must be justice, my lord," continued Aragorn, his eyes cold. "For crimes so vile, for such betrayal, there can be no leniency. Crucifixion would restore the scales of honor to Rohan and show all who look upon him that treachery will not be tolerated." At this, Théoden's sorrow turned to rage. He stood abruptly, his face reddening with a fury long suppressed. His voice rose with an authority that echoed through the chamber. "Bring Grima to me," he bellowed. "Let him answer for his crimes." The guards outside the chamber hurried, their footsteps fading into the silence as the king's fists clenched, shaking with grief and anger. His voice grew softer, his words tinged with heartbreak. "Did I not serve you as one of my people, Grima? Did I not grant you trust and kindness? How did it come to this, that a servant would betray his master so utterly?" Moments later, Grima was dragged into the room, his eyes darting nervously, attempting to avoid his king's gaze. Théoden's voice was as steady as it was cold. "Grima, son of Galmod, for your crimes against your king and the people of Rohan, you are hereby sentenced to death by crucifixion. May it be known to all what befalls those who betray their kin." Grima's face drained of color as Théoden's words struck. He stammered, "My lord, it was not me. It was Saruman." "Enough!" Théoden's voice cut through Grima's pleas, final and unyielding. "How do I now go to the halls of my fathers, and in their mighty company not be ashamed, as man who was defiled by another man?" As Grima was dragged away to face his sentence, Théoden lowered his head, weeping as the weight of betrayal settled heavily on him. The deed was done, and justice would be served, but a scar remained, one that could never be mended. "Speak of this to no one," he muttered to Goggins and Aragorn, who both nodded. In the hushed darkness following Grima's sentencing, the people of Eomer were gathered before the Golden Hall. By the king's command, the sentence was carried out swiftly, and by the dawn, word had spread through Rohan of Grima's fate. His broken form, displayed as a warning, marked the close of a dark chapter for the kingdom, but justice, harsh as it was, brought a fragile sense of peace to the king and his people. As the day wore on, preparations were made to accommodate the fellowship. Warriors gathered their arms, children helped stack supplies, and the townsfolk worked tirelessly to make ready for the journey to Helm's Deep. The fellowship was shown to guest quarters, simple but comfortable rooms within the high walls of Meadowsell. Late into the night, after the bustle had died down and the quiet settled over the town, Goggins, alone in his quarters, heard a soft knock at the door. Opening it, he found the Lady Eowyn, wrapped in a dark cloak, her expression intent yet hesitant. "What's up, ma'am?" he greeted, unsure of her purpose at such a late hour. "Lord Goggins," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "please forgive me. I seek a private word, if you would grant it." "Get that fine ass inside," he said, and stepped back, allowing her inside. She stood in the center of the room, her hands clasped tightly before her. Goggins noticed a faint blush on her cheeks as she began to speak, her voice wavering. "I wish to make a confession." She paused, taking a steadying breath. I am no longer the innocent maiden I once was. My heart, like Rohan, has long ached with a quiet loneliness. Her eyes held a mixture of shame and defiance. I have lain with men here and there, seeking solace in secret places and stables, but none has yet satisfied the longing within me. Goggins raised an eyebrow and suppressed a smirk. Forgive me, she continued. I had thought perhaps the Lord Aragorn might satisfy this desire within me, but my heart, like my eyes, turns in another direction. She looked directly at him, her gaze fierce. The men speak of you, saying you are as swift as any horse, that you have strength unlike any they've seen. And in you, I see a fire that none in Rohan can match. Her voice lowered, a soft challenge. I would put such rumors to the test if you would allow me, Lord. Ride with me, if only for tonight, and prove to me if their tales are true or false. I don't think you can handle what I got. This one bitch couldn't walk for a week after. I am a shield maiden of Rohan. I do not fear death, she shot back defiantly. Then what do you fear? Being trapped in a cage, forced to endure old age till I am no longer able to ride again. For a long moment, silence stretched between them. After this ride, you ain't gonna be riding again for a while, said Goggins with a smirk. The folk of Rohan would forever say the spirit removed that day from their king, returned that night to fill the town with its wails, keeping even the animals awake and foreboding of a great battle to come. How the wind howls.
Thanks for joining us on this adventure. If you enjoyed the journey and are eager for more wild fan fiction, don't forget to hit that like button, share with your fellow fans, and subscribe for more episodes. And if you're as enchanted by the idea of Middle-earth meeting Hogwarts as we are, make sure to check out our series exploring this magical crossover. Your support brings these worlds to life. Until next time, keep the fantasy alive.